What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So I know I'm typically supposed to bring you guys Yu-Gi-Oh content, but this is the one last piece of Bakugan TCG content that I really wanted to bring you because I wasn't sure if I was going to get my hands on this footage, but we actually have coverage of the grand finals match that happened at this Bakugan Invitational. Now, this is really cool because what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you guys the footage and basically give you guys like a live step-by-step commentary / breakdown so you guys can take all the information that I've discussed with you guys in the deck profile, in kind of like the breakdown of the game itself, and you can kind of all see it come together. And I think that makes for a really good video, especially for a game that's so new and not a lot of you guys really know much about it. So I thought this would be nice, so just sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and watch these finals. So switching on over to the footage itself, you're gonna see me and my opponent Irlook right here, and when you start a game you actually have to set up the Baku cores. These are the little hexagons that are going to trigger the Bakugan, make them just break open, and that's kind of, you know, pretty much one of the primary objectives of the game. So whoever the younger player is sets the first core, and this is really strategic because as you can see we have to make sure that the edges are touching, but some of these cores give our Bakugan, or who, you know, whichever Bakugan lands on it, power buffs. You know, maybe they up the B power, maybe they up the damage rating, but some of them have an adverse effect where they actually take stats away. So you might want to put those like in front of your opponent, and I think you're going to see my opponent do that at some point here as well. I think all of mine were actually buffs, so I wanted to have all of mine as close to me as possible. So that's kind of how you're going to see every game play out at the start. And yeah, it's like a little bit, you know, you can see him placing that one right there in front of me, but yeah, it's like a little bit kind of weird that you have to do this every single time, but it's kind of cool because no two grids are really going to look the same. You see me aligning cards because you have to roll from about 2 card lengths away, so I was kind of just getting the distance and laying out my 3 Bakugan cards kind of at like that imaginary line as to where you're supposed to roll, and I'm just making sure that he was doing the same thing as well. So that's pretty much how that works. We already shuffled before this video started, and we're dealing out our first 5 cards. You have 40 card decks, and you draw 5 cards, so that's just like Yu-Gi-Oh! That's pretty simple. We got the handshake, and here we go. So with Bakugan TCG, you guys have to remember, you have a shared turn. So as you see, we both drew a card at the same time, and we both are going to be playing an energy. He actually just forgot to put those cards back into his deck that he used to, you know, draw that imaginary line, but my first energy card is face down, and he's going to put his down momentarily too. Remember, energy has no color identity in this game, so it doesn't matter. You can use those energy to play any color of card. It can be a blue card, a white card, whatever. You're basically locked into which color Bakugan you're actually playing. So you see my opponent has a white, red, and gold, and I have a white, red, and blue. So my opponent's deck's comprised of white, red, and gold cards, and I have white, red, and blue cards. So as you can see, we're just picking our first Bakugan here to pretty much have our first battle. So I went ahead and went with my my Hydrus, my Pyrus Hydrus, my red one, and he's going with his gold one. I forget the name of his. So both of ours springed up, and what that means is now both of them are going to battle. Now, what you do is each of the Bakugan has a B power, like I said, the attack value, and that's what's going to dictate essentially which Bakugan wins the battle. So right there, you can see that we're kind of just getting close-ups of the cards themselves, and we're adding in the cores that we landed on because that's pretty much like a power buff. And I actually landed on 2 cores. It's actually, you're able to magnetize 2 at the same time, which is kind of crazy. And then, so you basically just add the power up all together, and whichever Bakugan has the bigger power wins, and then you proceed to dealing damage. So in this instance, even though I got 2 cores, his Bakugan has like a substantially high B power because there's not a lot of gold cards. The gold cards are very rare, so I could not actually win, and you see me taking damage here. I think I take 5 damage. 4. Okay, so the top 4 cards of my deck just automatically went to the discard pile, and then I had to set those cores back up. I'm gonna have to fold up my Hydrus as well because if 2 Bakugan battle, whichever one loses does have to re-roll and win a battle before it counts. So that's kind of just like the whole structure for a turn. This is kind of like the longest part and probably the most dull, just resetting all the Bakugan, especially after a team attack, because that just takes forever. But yeah, so that's it. Now we go into turn 2. So again, we both draw a card. We're both going to play another energy, and we're just going to repeat the same process. We're going to go ahead and pick which Bakugan we want to use. I'm going to go with my Hydrus again, and at this point, he cannot use the gold Bakugan that he already used because it won a battle. You have to win with each one before you reset, and you're able to use them again. And you'll see that a little bit later on in this video. So looks like we're about to go ahead with our next battle, and again, both of our Bakugan get to battle. So this is actually pretty good, because sometimes, you know, one person might just keep hitting theirs and the other person doesn't, and they're just getting free hits in. So again, we're going to be comparing our values. We have to add up the bonuses from the cores that we landed on, and then we have 2 energy, and there's a lot of cards that you can use at 1 or 2 energy to potentially buff our guys, and he unfortunately doesn't have anything, and so I think here he's going to have to take 5 damage, because I think the Hydrus' damage rating is 5, which means he's going to mill the top 5 cards. So here he goes. Just milling those cards off. There's a flip card here. We might get to see that up close. There is a flip card, but unfortunately, it's not going to matter because it is a Pyrus, and it has to be a non-Pyrus for that stop. And he actually took 2 extra damage because I think I got a Baku core that upped the damage by 2. So 5 plus 2 is 7, so we ended up milling 7. And, you know, that's like 20% of his deck. You only have 35 cards when you draw your 5 for the start of the game, so that was a pretty significant hit. And again, he's going ahead and having to reset his Bakugan since it lost, so he's going to have to win another battle with it at some point. And that's kind of some of the cool strategy of this game too, is that you're trying to figure out which Bakugan are going to give you like the best advantages just based off of their stats. And obviously when you get to deeper levels of play, you're going to know what Bakugan your opponent has, things like that. And I think that's actually kind of neat. So we see, you know, turn 3, we each played another energy, and it looks like we're just going to go ahead and pick our next Bakugan and go in. You are allowed to play cards before you battle with the Bakugan, but in the instance of like these starter kits we were using with just like, you know, a bunch of booster packs, we didn't really have anything that was worth using. Like maybe if there were some cards that let us draw cards, but a lot of the time, because everything can be played at any point, it doesn't really matter. So you want to just kind of use your resources when you can. That's usually your best option. And so here was an interesting battle. So mine actually sprung open and his did not. So this means I'm going to get a free attack in because he has no way to battle me. I essentially won the battle because there was nothing he can really do. Now, there are cards that can mitigate the amount of damage that he takes. I believe in the green faction, I think it's Ventus is what it's called. There are cards specifically that lower damage, but and I think there's a lot of them specifically for the green faction. But it looks like he's just going to take the damage and didn't have anything to really stop it. And we move on to turn number 4. So again, we're going to go ahead and place our energy cards down. You don't have to play an energy on your turn if you don't want to. There's actually several turns where I don't. I'd usually cap out at around 5 or 6, but yeah, for the most part, you're going to want to ramp up as much as you can, especially if you have the ability to ramp, it's even better. So that was a really cool hit there. You saw that there's actually a little bit of skill, because if you roll the Bakugan really hard, you can knock mine away. See, again, right there, he rolled his hard enough that it knocked mine back, but then his still sprung open, and that's really, really cool. It's a nice little strategic element, but it's also risky because if you roll too fast, you might not magnetize, and if you miss hitting my Bakugan, then you're just probably going to go rolling off the table, and it's not going to matter. So this, I think, was a really big turn for him because he had the ability to get a lot of damage in, and he used a 4 energy card. I believe it's called Molten Core or something like that. It basically gives him additional damage. I think it was like +2 damage rating or something, but then it also gives him double strike, which means it effectively doubles how much damage he was doing. So I think I was going to take somewhere in the ballpark of like 14 to 16 damage in one hit, but that's like half your deck. So that's a really, really big hit. Now you see here I hit a flip card called Spark. Basically because it flipped up, I had the ability to draw and or discard a card. So I chose not to because I was waiting for one of those cards, the Stop. Now, the Stops are basically cards that in the middle of taking damage, if you reveal them, if the conditions are met, you just pay the energy cost and you don't take any more damage. So as you can see, I was able to basically stop myself from taking anywhere from like 10 to 12 damage because it was like the third or fourth card that I flipped up. So the stops are extremely, extremely good, especially for limited play like this. And I got, you know, it's just, I had a lot of them, but you know, you still have to hit them if you're going to take a big hit. Now, both of us are in an interesting situation here because we both are on our last Bakugan, which means we're going to be setting up for a team attack. So whoever wins this battle essentially is not going to just do the damage of one Bakugan, they're going to do the damage of all 3 damage ratings of Bakugan put together. Now you can see that was really, really close. I can't believe his did not spring open. You see it magnetized there right at the end, but that actually doesn't count. It does have to spring open. And yeah, so this is intense because, you know, this is going to be a lot of damage to whoever ends up winning this. And that's why I actually went with my Fangzor here, because Fangzor has, I believe, like 600 B power by default. Again, neither one of us hit it. His Bakugan did spring open, but it was already like in my lap, so that technically doesn't count. And they were commentating and watching, so they were, you know, officiating to make sure everything was going as it should have. But he's going to have to take a moment here to roll it back up. But luckily, it wasn't one of the too complicated ones. And look at that, both Bakugan open up, so this battle is going to be intense, because honestly, it might not be a game-winning battle, but basically whoever wins this battle, their deck's just going to get utterly destroyed. So at this point, this is the situation where if you have a lot of cards, or a lot of energy available rather, you have an interesting decision to make, because you can go in and use a ton of power, or a lot of cards that give additional B power to win that battle, or you can purposely lose the battle, decide to take the damage, and hope that if you have enough stop cards in your deck, you're going to hit one, because statistically, if you have a lot of them, the chances of you hitting them are going to be very high. So if you have your energy up and keep it for that, there's a lot of interesting counterplay mechanics that go on, and that was what was really fun about playing this, is that we got to kind of learn that. So I actually think I won this team attack, and it looks like I'm adding everything up, and the first card he hits off the top is a stop that happens to only stop Bakugan of the Aquos, or it might be Ventus, I don't remember the other one, but because my Fangzor was an Aquos Fangzor, yeah, he literally just stopped me from doing like some absurd amount of damage. It was probably going to be in the range of like 20. So yeah, you know, that's how this game goes. But again, that's why we played those stop cards, because we know if we hit them, they're going to be really good. And you guys might be wondering what happens with the flip cards as our video comes to an end, because Negative Legends camera did run out of footage. I'm so sorry you guys didn't get to see more of this, but essentially with the flip cards, if you draw them in your hand, you just use them for energy, or you can like discard them for other card effects. So even though they can only be used if you're taking damage, they have other purposes outside of that, and I think that's really cool that they're never really dead cards, if that makes sense. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this entire commentary of probably like some of the first real gameplay of this game. I thought this was really cool to get my hands on. Big shout outs to Negative Legend for hooking me up with this footage. I didn't know we had footage that was this good, and I'm really grateful that he sent this to me. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you really enjoy the type of content that I produce on this channel, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you some amazing, awesome content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.